Hi, let's start the USS Freedom construction. Before I cut the first element, I spent couple hours looking for information about the ship, possible solutions in its construction, available painting schemes and equipment. This process is crucial and often determines the order of work with the ship. It is always worth considering what effect you want to achieve and arrange the stages of construction under this scheme, especially when it comes to painting the ship. As a standard, I started with such an analysis, at the same time marking in the manual the most important steps and decisions regarding the variant choice, if of course there is one. All elements of the model were very well protected, so this time I didn't wash the moldings with soap and water. I started with preparing the main parts of the hull. I decided to assemble the ship with a full hull, so that in the future I wouldn't have any restrictions when building a diorama. Using a hobby knife, I cut out the unnecessary elements and smoothed the surface with a file. Then I cut out parts of the main deck, the landing deck, and 57mm Mark 110 caliber naval gun elements. It required minor adjustments to place the mechanism in the housing without any problems, which was supposed to allow the barrel to move vertically. After a minor correction, I glued the artillery gun with extra thin glue. And set the barrel in the marching position. It's time to paint now. I painted the stern part of the ship, the naval gun, the bow deck and the landing deck with Mr. Finishing Surfacer 1500 grey primer. I've diluted it with Mr. Leveling Thinner in 1:4 proportion. The compressor pressure is about 20 psi. Then I took care of bridge and air traffic control station windows. I've used clear blue paint from Tamiya, painting them from the inside without primer. Thanks to this I got a semi-transparent effect and there will be no paint on the outside of the window, so in the future I will not have to worry that the paint will come off the plastic when masking these elements. In the aft part of the ship, under the landing deck, there are boat stations. One at the stern allows to launch and recover boat while the ship is underway. The boat is launched from the ramp through the open stern doors. My ship will have these doors open, so I'm gonna try to make a similar ramp. From I-400 submarine model, I had some parts left, including this seaplane takeoff ramp, which is the perfect size for the boat from the set. Using a razor saw, I shortened the ramp to the required length and then sanded it gently to make it slightly inclined toward the stern. Using pliers and a paper clip, I cut out the safety pylons on both sides of the ramp. Then, by mixing the two main colors of Vallejo paints, yellow and red, I got a nice orange color and painted the fenders on the pylons. I also painted the base of my ramp with dark grey paint. I cut the necessary ramp elements out of the heat shrink tubing and started assembling. The color matched perfectly to the fenders, so I decided that it would stay in this color. Then I moved on to painting the deck. With the neutral grey color, I tried to get a delicate effect of a patchy deck right away. The instructions suggest that the deck should be painted the same color as the sides of the ship, but when analyzing the real ship photos, I decided to paint them with a slightly darker shade. I also painted the interior of the stern part of the ship, which may be visible in the future. I've painted the landing deck with a different shade of grey, number 305. In the aft part, apart from the boat ramp, there are two stations where the boats can be secured. I decided to paint them, but first masking. I've painted the mask elements with tire black. It's true that I got a bit sweaty with this masking, but the effect is worth a few minutes of additional work. It would be rather difficult to achieve such coverage with a brush. The time has finally come to glue the hull together. It fits almost perfectly, only slightly tightened at the stern, so I used clips to press both parts together. After gluing one side and waiting a few minutes, I glued the other side. And after a few minutes, I started to sand them with a file. Finally, I used the extra thin glue again to dissolve the particles after grinding that were definitely in the gap between the elements. The time has come to assemble the ramp. I've pasted it with Ammo by MiG Ultra Glue. For some time now, I've been trying to use cyanoacrylate glues only as a last choice, and most often I replace them with Ultra Glue. It guarantees a much cleaner look and the possibility of corrections. It dries slower than CA glue, but I also consider this as a big advantage. I've also pasted the pylons on both sides of the ramp and went to the ship's bow where the naval gun was waiting for me. I've pasted the gun on the rotating base in a way that allows it to move horizontally. In such a case, the excess glue should be removed with a piece of paper towel. After all, we don't want our sailors to have limited firing angles. As you can see, I managed not to stick it to the deck of the ship. Using Ultra Glue, I've pasted the main deck in the bow and went back to the stern again to mount the transom of the ship using extra thin glue. Why do I use extra thin glue for some elements and ultra glue for others? As in the case of the already painted landing deck, I prefer to stick it with ultra glue, which doesn't react with paint and is transparent after drying. In this case, extra thin would dissolve the paint a bit at the edges and create small spots. I also glued the deck of the helicopters and unmanned vehicles hangar, and then glued the main elements of the superstructure. Before installing it, I decided to paint the hangar deck, which will be visible in case of open doors. I also painted the boat stand located on the side of the ship. I put a coat of primer and then paint with Mr. Color neutral gray again. After masking the boat stand, I've painted it with tire black color and started masking the bridge windows. I've glued them on the inside using ultra glue. Pasted the air traffic control station window. And then the boat stand on the ship's side. I've masked the air traffic control station window and the superstructure is ready for assembly. To provide additional buoyancy on LCS-1, buoyancy tanks were attached on the stern on each side of the stern door. In LCS-3 USS Fort Worth, the hull was lengthened below the waterline, providing more buoyancy without the tanks. With the extra length, the ship was actually faster. So I pasted the characteristic of USS Freedom tanks, masked part of the deck inside the hangar, and glued the superstructure. In the places of contact with the painted decks, I used ultra glue and the sides were glued with extra thin glue. The ship's sides will require some corrections, but it will take place in the next episode. I will also take care of preparation for painting and painting the ship itself. So far the work is going my way and I hope that this streak will continue to the end. That's it for today. Another construction report is almost traditionally in about 2 weeks. Hear you soon guys, bye!